So recently I had the opportunity to unpack what we call the 7-figure appointment playbook with a bunch of realtors from across North America. And I'm going to share this with you on this solo episode of the RE Agent Podcast. We'll see you soon. My name is Cody May from Sheridan Street. We have a fundamental belief at our agency that all conversion happens in conversations. Everything that we do is to help real estate agents and real estate team leads drive sales performance. And what we mean by that is, how do we have not only more conversations? Everyone in the marketplace is talking about more conversations, more phone calls, more door knocks, more this, more open houses. But what me and my business partner Vic, are starting to kind of shift the conversation towards is like, how do we have better conversations? Rather than making, 200 dials a day and only having 20 conversations and not only booking one appointment, how do we increase that conversion by having great conversations? Something I've been thinking a lot about even recently, and something me and Vic have been talking about is like, we, kind of our tagline has been all conversion happens in conversation, but we've been actually debating, do we change this? Because it's not just all conversion happens in conversation. It's all conversion happens in great conversation. You can have as many conversations as you want. If you don't know how to say the right things in order to not trigger the prospect, in order to not trigger the amygdala brain, and if you don't do that, everyone's teaching what to say, but not very many people are telling you what not to say. And today what I want to do is I want to walk you through what to say, how to say it, and what not to say, so that you can actually ultimately get what you want, which is more conversion, more income. So a little bit about me, just fast track overview, so you have a high level understanding of who I am. My name is Cody from Sheridan Street, like I mentioned, co-author of the book, What If You Could, The Mindset and Business Blueprint for Your Life of Purpose. I'm the co-host of the RE Agent Podcast. My expertise has been featured on CHH News, Ticker News Australia, Business Insider, Thrive Global, Toronto Guardian. I don't say any of this to impress you. I say it to impress on you that what we're doing in the real estate space, we've taken so much of our learning and our lesson. I've been in multiple industries. Vikram, my business partner, has been in multiple industries. We've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on coaching and training in order to kind of build what we call the 7-figure appointment playbook and what we call the Real Estate Sales Academy, where we're helping agents all across North America essentially with that. How do we have better conversations so that we can get more conversion and we can have the lifestyles we desire, we can have the income we desire, and we can help more families locally. So I want to walk you through something we call the 7-figure appointment playbook today, something that we've coined, something that I'm going to give you 7-figure appointment playbook. So if you stay till the end, at the very end, there's going to be a QR code. And you scan that QR code, I'm going to give you free access to our 7-figure appointment playbook 1.0. We're actually creating 2.0 right now, which is like a training program. But what you're going to get by staying for the entire session today is at the very end, you're going to get a free access to one of our training programs that we actually charge for. So I would encourage you to stay to the very end. Scan that QR code, send me a DM, and I'll get you free access to that 7-figure appointment playbook. There's over 44 training modules you're going to access to. You're going to access to our script that is updated in real time as the market shifts and the market changes. So as I say this, something I want to set the tone for today is, why is this important? Why is the 7-figure appointment playbook so important? Why is it so important that we understand how to communicate on such a better level? And it's really this: the real estate market has changed. When I say the real estate market has changed, look at what's happened from 2020, 2021 to today. We have the NAR lawsuit right now that's currently in effect. We have tons of uncertainty in the marketplace. We have interest rates, a lot higher than they were 3.5, 4 years ago. Lots is happening in the real estate market. When lots changes, we have a choice to make. Do we want to be simply a wait for the market to shift agent? Or do we want to be the I'm going to take market share agent? And my hope today is that as we spend the next hour together, that you have radical clarity around how to be I'm going to take market share agent. I want you to be the latter. I don't want you to be just another agent that says, hey, interest rates are up and inventory is down. And it's like we blame the market for a ton of different things, but there's still deals happening in every single marketplace. It's just a matter of whether you are the chosen person to represent the buyers and the sellers, or whether you're just another agent that is waiting for the market to shift. My encouragement today as we go through this is, as you dive in, as if you're listening back to the replay, you press record, you stop, you take some notes so that you have radical clarity around how to actually take market share locally. That's what we're going to jam about today. So this is so important because what worked in 20 and 21 is not working today. The momentum-based market of simply opening doors, closing doors, writing contracts, that's just not working anymore. We have exited what we call a momentum market when we've entered into what we call a skills-based market. So I run an ISA company. One mistake early on we made in our agency, we weren't listening to what the real estate agents were saying on the other end of the phone. So you would get a transfer that would happen. You'd have their budget, their timeline, their motivation, their means. You'd have a lot of information. For example, I'd have Andrea on the phone. And I'd say, hey, Andrea, I'm going to I have Tom here on the phone with me. He's looking for a 2-bed, 3-bath home, $700,000 budget. He wants to move within the next 6 months. He's been pre-approved, and it's important. He mentioned it's important that he's a big backyard because he wants his kids to run around safely in the big backyard. That would be the transfer. You think the logical next step would be, hey, let's book an appointment. But that wasn't what was happening. I've now reviewed 5,000 plus calls between my trainers, between myself, and I want you to I'm going to stop here for a second. I want you to guess the average that agents in your market, because these are markets across North America, are actually asking the prospect for an appointment via live transfer calls. This isn't factoring in outbound calls that you do. This isn't factoring in Zillow. These are just buyer and seller calls that people that just genuinely want to have a conversation about real estate. They're potentially looking at buying within the next 3, 6, 12 months. Just guess. Stop here for a second. Only about 8% of real estate agents are asking for an appointment. And this makes sense because 95% of business is done by 5% of the realtors. We know that. But I was a little startled when we started doing call reviews because I was like, I just had expected that everyone was asking for an appointment. And that's just not the case, because if you can get more appointments and if you have more confidence because you've gotten more appointments, you're going to get more conversion. Now, we don't have 7-8 hours to go through the entire appointment playbook today. I'm going to give you that to kind of digest later on, but you have to get through this training in order to get to the end in order to get that free training at the end. It's become abundantly clear through data that the gap between leads and conversion is systems and skills. It's not going out and buying a different lead source. It's not going out and creating more content. It's systems and skills. Systems and skills. We have a diagnostic tool that we use for all of our clients. Whenever I'm doing private consulting with a client, generally what I do is I sit down and I say, okay, let's take a look at your traffic. Let's take a look at your systems, and let's take a look at the skill. So I have the opportunity to see under the hood of real estate teams that are doing massive numbers, like 14% Zillow rate conversion, teams that have 60, 70, 150 agents on their team. I get to see behind the scenes of what they do. And generally they view their business in 3 pillars. What is the traffic that's coming in? What are the systems that we're using? And then the third element that pretty much every large real estate team factors in is how are we up-leveling our skill? How are we up-leveling our presentations? How are we up-leveling the amount of appointments? How do we increase the conversion rate? And I'm gonna walk you through that today. Why don't agents ask for an appointment? If you're talking to a buyer and a seller and you have all that information, why don't agents ask for an appointment? Some of us listening to the replay or some of us on the call, why don't we ask for an appointment? This is my thesis. My thesis is simple. Agents don't know what to say. They don't know how to say it, and they don't want to feel salesy, but it's not your fault. It's not your fault because this industry has been lied to. This industry has been told by multiple companies out there, even including coaching companies that you probably know. Just go buy more leads. Buy more leads. Have 5 lead sources. Have 5 lead pillars. But if you don't know what to say to those lead pillars, and you don't know how to actually convert them to a buyer consult, if you don't know what to say in a buyer consult, you're not going to book a buyer appointment to begin with. When you lack confidence about what you're going to say, You don't want to, and I see this happen all the time. Like ISAs have a hard time booking listing appointments because they don't know what the agent is actually going to say in the listing appointment. They don't understand basic concepts. And some agents don't understand basic concepts about the real estate transaction. They don't understand that the real estate transaction is governed by contracts and power players. If you don't understand that the real estate transaction has 3 agreements, such as the buyer agreement, the listing agreement, and the purchase agreement, and you don't understand how the transaction works, you're not going to have the confidence necessary to feel like you have a proven process that can get a buyer or a seller a proven result. And when you don't have that confidence, you don't have that inner working, that inner confidence, you're not going to book an appointment because you don't know what to say in the appointment other than open the door. And if that is the only thing that we know, we owe it to ourselves and we owe it to our clients in order to up-level our skill and get the skills necessary in order to help them at a larger level. I don't think that, I personally think that agents are some of the best people in the world. They love their clients. They love working with their clients. It's just they haven't been trained about these things. And because they haven't been trained and because generally like the bar of entry is so low, what ends up happening is like they get out into the world and on day one, they don't know what to do. They don't know how to do a buyer presentation. They don't know how to do a listing presentation. So it's not your fault. I want to give you the tools necessary so you can book more appointments today. As you can see, I'm pretty passionate about this stuff. I understand using a script. This is probably one of the most common objections we get. Like, well, Cody, like, you know, using a script can feel salesy. Like, I don't want to feel salesy, and I understand that. I empathize with that. But the encouragement I would give you here is, like, listen to yourself back without a script. That's all I'm going to say today on Script That. Just listen to yourself back. Record your calls. Do yourself a favor. You know, if you get nothing from today other than this, record your calls. Go into the back end of your CRM software. Click the record calls button. Make all your calls from your CRM and listen to yourself back. I think you'll be pretty shocked in how you sound on the phone. You know, presenting, making phone calls, having conversations, going deep with prospects, not saying service level is what creates conversion. I want to show you the talk tracks. I also want to show you the tonality frames behind what top producers are doing today to convert 40 to 70% of the conversations they have to appointments. I want to give that to you today. I want to make that a gift to you. Because like I said, I've had the opportunity to see under the hood of what teams are doing. They're converting 14% of Zillow leads that they speak with and over 7% of database leads. It takes work, but it's possible. I have a team that has an agent on their team that's a 27.5% conversion rate on all Zillow leads using the framework I'm going to give you today. Meaning almost 1 out of 3 people he speaks to that comes in from Zillow, they go to an actual appointment or they go to the closing table. It's pretty incredible stuff. The scripts, the talk tracks are different with the Zillow lead than they are with the database lead. I'm going to give you a high-level overview on how you do this today, but the talk tracks are different. In the training I'm going to gift you later on in this training, I give you Zillow scripts. I give you database scripts. I have a buyer script. I give you a ton of different talk tracks. Now, this is just the baseline. This is like foundational training. Like, this is what we call foundations. This is the 7-figure appointment playbook is foundational training. Advanced training lives inside of our real estate sales academy, inside of our trust rapport influence sales method. That's where the advanced stuff lives. This is all foundational stuff, but even with the foundations, you can make a massive difference. Because my belief is simple. All conversion happens in conversation, which requires us to become better with our conversation. So let's get into the nitty gritty. Before we do that, for those that know him, he runs a publicly traded company, publicly traded on the NASDAQ. When he started with Real a couple of years ago, I think they were at like 4,000 agents, and they're now over 20,000 agents. Known as the smartest man in real estate, one of my good friends, Sharon Srivatsa, says the script is not for you. The script is for the client. The script allows you to get everything out of your head and onto paper so you can digest it, understand it, and be able to verbally communicate it in a way that is digestible for the prospect so that you can help them get what they want, the home they want, at the price they want, with the terms they want. That's ultimately our job as a buyer's agent. And our job as a listing agent is to get them the offer they want, at the price they want, with the terms they want. I want to show you how to effectively do that today. So how do we do this without feeling salesy, but have the opportunity to work with more clients? We call it the 7-figure appointment playbook. Let's rock and roll. Like I said, the problem is we only have 60 minutes together. So I'm going to try to, scan through as much of this stuff as I possibly can to give you radical clarity on how we do this well. So we have one choice to make today by the time we're done this training. Is training going to be something you did, or is training going to be something that you do? It's a choice. It's your choice. The top professionals in the space, in every single space, whether it be real estate, whether it be entrepreneur running a business, training is always something that you do, not something you did. So that'd be my encouragement today. So like I said, I'm going to give you the 7-figure appointment playbook at the end. So stick around, scan the QR code, and send me a DM, and I'll get you access to that for free. So let's rock and roll. 3 pillars that we create with our clients that I want to give to you. Number 1 is the appointment engine. How do we set more appointments? Number 2 is the 7-figure appointment playbook. Number 3 is our impact session. So let's rock and roll. So this is the playbook overview. There's 5 stages to book an appointment and to actually not just book an appointment, but actually create raving fans and then get those raving fans to give us more business. This is how you create a referral business with people you don't know. I'm going to walk you through this because everyone's like, I want to create a referral business. It's the best sphere. Yay. And it's like, well, practically, how do we do that? Referral businesses, eventually you have to speak to people you don't know. Like you just eventually have to speak to people you don't know in order to actually build a referral business. I'm going to show you how to do that. Stage 1 is what we call chunk up, chunk down. I'm going to walk you through how to clarify and probe so that you actually have real conversations versus like the surface level ones, like the LP Mama stuff that just like is like outdated, 1990s, like it's just outdated. The game plan frame, I'm going to walk you through exactly what to say in order to book an appointment. The tie down, how to actually get people to show up to the meeting, because as you get more meetings, one of the things you're going to run into as you run into, even our top clients run into this, is like people don't show up for meetings. That's just natural. So how do we get like a 70-80% show up rate to our meetings, not a 30, 40, 50% show up rate that is pretty normal in the real estate space? How do we handle objections without like crushing the objection? No one wants to be crushed. Your grandmother's objections don't want to be crushed. We want to prevent objections, and we want to actually just answer questions. I'm going to show you how to do that. And then how do we get an intro? How do we turn one client into 4? That's ultimately what we're going to walk through today. So chunk up, chunk down. This is the core thing that we need to understand at the high level. The chunk up is the logic. Everyone stays logic. How many beds? How many baths? Oh, that's awesome. What's your budget? Oh, have you been pre-approved? Like the common things that we ask that trigger sales resistance, because people like when you ask those questions and you're just like writing down notes, what happens on 97% of your calls that you have with prospects? Yeah, I'm just looking, like this would be a 12-month thing. Like when actually it's not a 12-month thing, it could be a lot sooner, but you're triggering sales resistance. The chunk down up is the logic. We're really good at this. We're really good at like how many beds, how many baths. Hey, let me set you up on a search. Hey, whenever you're ready to go see property, let me know. But that's not how you create clients that trust you. It's a mixture of both. We need the logic, but people don't buy with logic. They buy with emotion and they justify it with logic. So it's our responsibility, it's our fiduciary responsibility as real estate agents to be advisors. Do you want to be a cashier and clerk and just like check, or do you want to be an advisor? I would highly encourage you today to be an advisor, because advisors get paid like advisors, cashiers and clerks get paid like cashiers and clerks. So how do we do this? 7 things. Take a screenshot of this. Sorting questions, permission questions, clarifying questions, hypothetical questions, tonality, verbal cues, restatements. We don't have time to get through them all, but you need all 7. Just throwing it out there. We don't have time to get through all 7. That's what the 44 other training modules are for. That's what our Real Estate Sales Academy advanced training is for. If you want to actually practice this stuff, because it's one thing to watch a video, it's another thing to actually show up with people that are, like people like Jan or people like Molly or people like Ryan Markowitz, who we're going to listen to a call today. These people are setting appointments day in and day out. Like Jan, for example, has mastered this stuff, and he has more listings in the last 3 months than he did all of last year. Molly has more closed transactions in the course of 5 months than she did all last year. Ryan Markowitz is now setting anywhere from 6 to 10 appointments per open house he does, because he knows he's mastered the game plan frame and he gets curious. I'm going to show you how to do that today. Like I said, we don't have time to get through all 7, but you need all 7 in order to not trigger sales resistance. What's phase number 1? Like when we look at the flow structure of how to have a good conversation, it really is this. We ask questions, we clarify and probe, and we restate. Then we ask some more questions, sorting questions, what we call them, like, hey, hypothetically, are you after like houses or condos? And then it's like, oh, we're after a house. Oh, like just out of curiosity, like how would a house look different than like what you currently have? That's a clarify and probe question. That's or we call that like a situation question. Like that's a great question. Like if you ask anybody that question, I'm telling you, you will get to understand what their current situation is. Like, hey, like help me understand. Like how would like a home near like this school district be different from what you currently have though? Now you get an understanding of what they currently have and where they currently are, so you can help them get to where they want to go. But how you ask that question is super important. But clarify and probe. I'm going to give you a quick example of clarify and probe. So one of the things that I've learned along the way with actually doing clarify and probe really well is like, this is going to sound like a really funny example, but like we make assumptions. And those assumptions ultimately lead to us not getting the results we're looking for. One of the things that I say to my team all the time is that it's just assume you don't understand. When you're on the call, if like we call this the curious tone. If we actually want to be curious about a prospect, number one, remove the phrase out of your mouth. Something to never say is "I totally understand." People say it all the time. You don't totally understand. You don't know what they're going through. And by you saying that, you're telling them that like you understand when you actually don't. You can empathize maybe with their situation, but 99% of the time you don't actually understand what they mean. So rather than saying I totally understand, you would ask a question to clarify and probe and say like, hey, help me understand. Or like, hey, just so I can see things through your eyes. That gets them to open up more to us. But just assume we don't understand, which ultimately puts us into a state of curiosity, which allows us to ask better questions. It's not just like everyone's teaching you what to say. There's books out there saying like, hey, just say these exact same things. But if you don't say them in the right tone and you don't say them with the right curiosity, or if you say the wrong thing, you trigger sales resistance. And we don't want to do that. So that's one example of what not to say. Don't say I totally understand, because you don't. Let's just assume when you're talking to people that you don't understand. You'll ask better questions. You will then begin to clarify and probe to really get down to the root reason of their why. Simon Sinek wrote a book called Start With Why. That's ultimately what we want to do in every conversation. It's like, what's their why? The purpose, we were listening to a call probably about a month and a half ago with an ISA team. They have 7 to 8 in-house ISAs on their team. I do private consulting for this large team. I help their agents help their team. They pay me a lot of money monthly in order to do private consulting. We were listening to one of their ISA's calls, and the gentleman was like, hey, we like on the other end of the phone was like, hey, we live in California right now. We want to move to Arizona. And, we just have always wanted to, we want more space. And we glanced over what the father said on the call, where he said, he's like, they're currently in a 1-bedroom apartment in California and they have 2 kids. Like, let's just stop for a second and be like, this doesn't even make sense. Like, how do you have 2 kids in a 1-bedroom apartment? Like that's a real pain point, but we don't actually know what that's like. And if we don't open that up and be like, hey, like, out of curiosity, or like, just help me understand, like what, like where you could go at it with a playful tone, like where are the kids, like if you have enough rapport, like where are the kids sleeping? Like help me understand, like are they sleeping on the porch? Like if you have that, or you could go after more of a concerned, like, hey, like it sounds like getting to Arizona like is kind of a serious thing. Like how is like the kind of the living situation right now affecting like the overall family function? Be more of concerned, empathetic. You take multiple different directions, but like you have to ask the question, because you got to find the pain, or what my good friend Vikram Deol calls the overarching goal. Like it's not enough to say, hey, we just want more space. Like, why do we want more space? What will that do for us? But in order to do that, we can't stay surface level with prospects. We have to actually have better conversations, and we need to ask clarifying questions. We need to peel back the onion and go 2-3 layers deeper. That's how we create relationships with people we don't know. How to secure the appointment. High level overview. Again, I'm going to go high level. We go deeper into our foundations portal, and we go even advanced inside of Treza. We use sorting questions. One of the best things you can do when you're on a prospect or you're making an outbound call. Like a lot of people will say, use an open-ended question. It's like, they don't know you. Why would you ask them an open-ended question? Like you want to make it really easy for the prospect to answer. This goes for your text messages, your DMs, your phone calls. Hey, like ring. Hey, Andrea, this is just Cody with XYZ Realty. Does that like sound familiar at all? That's how you do it open. No, it doesn't. Well, like, hey, like, I'm just taking a look at my records here. It looks like at one point in time you requested some information around homes in the Toronto area. Like, out of curiosity, are you after like homes, single family homes, condos? Like, what exactly has you browsing right now? And then you sort them. You open up them. You clarify the questions. So you clarify and probe, and then you leverage restatements. So one of the mistakes that people have when I give them this is they will jump way too quick to the restatement. What I would encourage you to do, in the foundations is like try to unpack one more layer. If they don't understand your question, try to reframe the question. It's something you need to practice, and it's something that our clients practice all the time inside the Sales Academy. It's not an easy thing to do. None of this is easy. It's simple, but none of it's easy. It takes practice in order to do this well. But once you do, you get results like our clients, Mike, Jan, hundreds of other clients we work with. But how to chunk down. So how do we actually ask why-based questions? So there's these things we call verbal cues. And verbal cues allow us to shift our body language. Like as soon as we shift our body language with the verbal cue, when we map the verbal cue with the body language, what happens is we ask better questions. Because better questions are not just what you say, it's how you phrase them in the tone that you phrase them. So let me give you an example. So in order to go into more of a curious tone, one of the ones I love the most is like, hey, just so I can see things through your eyes, Andrea, like when you said this, what specifically made that important for you now though? There's a few things I did in that, dropping my tone. I'm using my hand, but I'm also using a verbal cue. And then I use the now though. I'm trying to seed in the fact that, it sounds like you want to fix this now, but like, why now though? And then what she's going to do is she's going to explain, because in that concerned, confused tone, Andrea's brain psychologically is going to say, Cody didn't understand what I meant. I need to but I need to explain to him what I mean. Another example is like, hey, when you said X, Y, and Z, can you expand on that? Or like, hey, like help me understand. Like when you said this, that's how you chunk down. That's how you clarify and probe. High level overview. I know I'm probably going fast, but we only have so much time and I want to get through the entire playbook today. So another example, like what we call bridge or verbal cues, is just out of curiosity. Now, just for clarification's sake. Now, before I let you go. Those are all what we call verbal cues or bridge phrases that allow us to move from question to question, allow us to push ourselves into a concerned tone. I, in the very beginning, struggled with tonality. I used my hands a lot, because it changes my tonality, and I use facial expressions because it changes tonality, and I use verbal cues because I find it helps me flip my tonality to concern to a more of a playful tone. Sometimes you want to add a little bit of fun into the conversation because it reduces sales resistance. You're just having fun. When you're in conversation with clients that buyers and sellers, first element of the call that you make is what we call the connection phase. So when you're on a call with a prospect, or even when you're just in conversation, do not put the focus on you. Hey, we're the best in, I hear scripts right now that are just like horrendous. Hey, we're the top producers in the Toronto region. We sold thousands of transactions. They don't care. Like the focus is not about you. It's about the client and what they want and how you can help them get to where they want. The best way to do that is through questions. I'll give you a FSBO example. Hey, yeah, we're just, it's an expired listing. We're just going to list with somebody else. Oh, okay, got it. Now, I guess like when you sat down with your last agent, like what pricing strategy did they like walk you through prior to showing up and listing the property? Like what pricing strategy did you choose? So what you're doing is you're creating skepticism in the prospect. Your questions the way you phrase the question, you want to get the prospect to say like, well, what do you mean? Because we know that the vast majority of real estate agents in the marketplace are either search and show because they don't know, or they show up and they list and they have a 44-point marketing plan. When we say, what pricing strategy did you use? The average agent doesn't even understand what you mean by pricing strategy. So, and they definitely most likely didn't explain that to their sellers. So it opens up conversation and it seeds curiosity. So if you're ever speaking to an expired, one of the best ways you can get into conversation is with that question. The situation phase, like you want to give them a safe space to vet and talk. Now, in order to do that, you need to clarify and probe. Hey, like, help me understand, like, how long have you been considering getting out of that rental? How would getting into like a 2-bedroom home with a big backyard be kind of different from what you currently have now? That's a situation question. Problem solution, you want to clarify why they're on the phone with you. Like, what even had them raise their hand in the first place? Like, I know, like, hey, like, help me understand, like, you were looking at homes like 12 months ago. I guess, like, what even like sparked like the thought of like possibly making a move from where you currently have? It doesn't sound like what you have is all that bad. Like, why even decide to move? We want to figure out what the gap is. That's a great clarifying question, or a problem solution question. Commitment phase. You want to get them to sell themselves on the action that they want to take. We have to understand that people buy with emotion, they justify with logic. So how do we actually help them understand that there might even be a larger gap than what they realize? Our questions can do that. This is the power of sales. This is the power of human psychology. Andrea, like, help me understand, like, what would be the rationale of like moving now versus like just staying where you're currently at? It doesn't sound all that bad. Now you're giving them an opportunity to sell them why moving, because people either run away from pain or they run towards pleasure. We want to give them the opportunity in order to say, okay, this is our current state. This is why our current state isn't working for us right now. Rather than telling them, we want to get them to tell themselves. And we do that through great questions. Consequence phase. I'm going to go high level over this. This is more the consequence phase. I find our clients tend to use this more in presentations than they do in like setting appointments. But I always skim over this because I think this is really important. Because once you have all this information, if you're in the buyer consult phase and they're like, actually, Cody, we're just going to wait. Totally. You can 100% do that. Like, that's definitely an option. Can I like ask a little bit of a tough question? That's what we call a bridge phrase into your consequence question. Like, it gets like, what happens if we do nothing though? Like, we just kind of stay in the 1-bedroom apartment. Like you had mentioned to me earlier that it's causing this, and this. I guess how many more months are you going to kind of be comfortable being in a 1-bedroom apartment with like 2 kids? I know it's a bit of a tough question. Well, I don't know, this. And the best phrase to kind of go from consequence in order to share your perspective, you say this. You say, hey, Andrea, can I like share with you possibly like a different perspective? And then you go into what you would recommend as an advisor for their specific circumstance. That's how you get them off the fence. Like I said, phase 1 is the connection phase. Phase 2 is the situation phase. Phase 3 is the problem phase. We walk through a lot more in the training, exactly how to do that. I walk through a lot more inside of Triz. But, if there's one thing that you like, if you're listening back to the replay, what I want you to do is I want you to stop for a second. I want you to take a deep breath in, deep breath out, grab a cup of water, because you cannot miss this. And let's go through the number 1 framework that you need in order to set more appointments. Whether you're talking to an expired, a FSBO, a seller, a buyer, an investor, it doesn't matter. This frame works. You can adjust a little bit. One of the mistakes before we get into what the frame actually is, people say to me all the time, Cody, I used the game plan frame, but I didn't set an appointment. And they listen back to the call. I'm like, you didn't use the game plan frame. Because there's 4 levels of the game plan frame. Number 1 is the context for the meeting. I'm going to explain to you what that is. The context is the top 3 strategies. Then we ask a sorting question, and then we set the appointment. I'm going to show you exactly how to do this. Just follow this in the beginning word for word. Once we get into advanced sales training, I'm going to show you an example, some advanced sales training, and kind of how some of our clients use this specific framework in order to drive conversion. Game plan frame context. So it's not enough. One of the mistakes I hear, I'm going to go back here for a second. One of the mistakes I hear agents make all the time when they say, like, I asked for an appointment, I didn't get a meeting. If you don't build enough curiosity around what you're going to accomplish in that meeting, or if the prospect doesn't feel like you have an actual process, I'm going to actually show you a call where the guy said, like, well, what are those? Like, or what do you mean? I'm going to get to that in a second. I'm going to show you a call of one of our clients, Ryan. But if you don't ask the question in the right way, and you don't build enough rapport prior to the game plan frame, either one of 2 things is going to happen. Either they're not going to show up, and this is where advanced sales training really comes in, because like the next bridge, like what's going to happen, the next bottleneck you're going to face once you start setting appointments is you're going to have a hard time getting them to show, or you're not going to be able to phrase this question properly. But what I want you to do as you're listening to this training is maybe go back and really try to understand the psychology of this talk track I'm going to give you. We can't dismiss everything that we learned over the last 30 minutes, because that plays into what we call the game plan frame. But this is the game plan frame. Hey, out of curiosity, has anyone like taken the time to walk you through the 3 most important strategies like you would need to consider in order to like buy a home in today's market? Has anyone done that for you? That's if they're looking to buy right now. If they're 12 months out, 18 months out, you would phrase that a little bit differently. You would say, hey, has anyone taken the time? Or you would say, hey, like, I know you say you're just in your pre-planning phase, but like out of curiosity, like, has anyone taken the time to sit with you and walk you through the 3 most important strategies you would need to consider in order to buy a home when you are ready? Has anyone done that for you? And the reason that we say, has anyone done that for you at the very back end is because it's reaffirming what we said at the front end of the context. If we don't frame the question in this way, the prospect's gonna be like, no, I told you I was just looking. We got to slow it down. We got to slow down our cadence. We got to slow down our pace. We got to go into more of a curious concern. Like, it doesn't sound like it, but has anyone done this for you? And once they say no, you're gonna say this word for word. And I'm gonna break down why we say it this way. I didn't think so. I didn't think that anyone has it. It didn't sound like it. Like, hey, well, what I can do is I can set aside some time on my calendar for us to meet in person for a cup of coffee at said location. Before the coffee gets cold, what we'll do is we'll actually create a game plan around the 3 most important strategies that we share with all of our top clients to ensure you're able to make an informed, intelligent decision when you are ready to buy. Would mornings or afternoons work better for you? So let's break that down. What I can do is I can set aside some time on my calendar. What that is we call that status frame. Hey, I'm doing you a favor because, again, I have the information that you need based on what you said. We could go even deeper. Say, for example, they tell us they moving from California to Arizona. The context for that could be, has anyone taken the time to like walk you through the 3 strategies it would take in order to move from California to Arizona to get out of the 1-bedroom apartment into a 3-bedroom that you were looking for? That could be another example. That's where you would use, that's more advanced. That's where you would use the information they gave you earlier to ask the question. And then you're going to ask at the very end, would mornings or afternoons work better for you? You're going to sort them at the end. The reason we ask mornings or afternoons, or the reason we ask weekdays or weekends, is because it makes it really easy for the prospect. We don't say, hey, does tomorrow at 9 a.m. work? We want to work with them and guide them down whatever works best. We don't want to say a morning when mornings never work. We sort them, and then what we do is we tie down the meeting. So I don't want anyone here to be a search and show agent. One of the most common things that I hear agents say when they're on the phone with a prospect that isn't property specific, the vast majority of agents don't know what to do when the prospect says, okay, we're just in our preliminary phase. And I want to give you that because there's a lot of deals sitting in people that are telling you that they're 6 to 12 months out. That's where the vast majority of your deals are sitting. I'm telling you now. Please, and we talk about this in the training. Stop saying, hey, Andrea, whenever you're ready to go see a property, just let me know, send me a text message, and we'll go see that property. Don't say that. It doesn't work. How many times have you called somebody, if you do calling, you follow up in 3 months later, like, we actually already sold our house, or we actually already bought. It's because somebody else called them and they used the game plan frame or something along the lines of it. It's just like that strategy of search and show is no different than Zillow or Redfin. The game plan frame, what I just shared with you, like, again, hey, I booked my first appointment. Hey, I booked 5 today. Hey, the script works amazing. Our clients are converting 40 to 70% of the appointments they speak with to an in-person meeting simply by using that game plan frame, whether it be an open house. So I'm going to show you something really quickly. I'm going to show you practically how to use the game plan frame because I want you to hear it. It's one thing for me to say it to you. It's another thing for you to hear it live on a call. Let me share my sound. This is our client, Ryan. Ryan is crushing it. He uses the game plan frame everywhere. He booked I think his last open house, he booked 8 appointments, got 2 buyers signed under contract from an open house. A lot of people are like, well, we can't get any appointments from open houses. It's like, what are you asking the prospect? This is what you do.
I'm just kind of curious. Has anyone kind of gone through with you the 3 most important things about buying and selling a property at the same time? Like what? Yeah, knowing the 3 pricing strategies in real estate that every seller uses, and as a buyer that you need to go into aspirational perceived market and event-based pricing and how that kind of ties into the market dynamics. Has anyone kind of gone through that with you?
No, I haven't been to. I just looking in the market, see if there's anything interesting. There are nicer houses out there.
Yep. So he goes on and he sets the appointment. That's an example of a game plan frame. That was an expired call. That was an expired cold call. It works. FSBOs, expireds, like you can use it and see what he's doing in the back end of the call. He's like, yeah, okay, yeah, I gotcha. We call that verbal cues. It allows him to cut in if the guy goes rambling off. So all advanced stuff. Ryan's been in our program for about a year, absolutely crushing it. He's going to be joining us in Vegas for our live sales event that's happening on August the 1st. But 7-figure appointment playbook here, again, like I mentioned earlier, after you use the game plan frame, what you're going to do is you're going to tie down the meeting, personalize the invitation, face to name. So we're going to wrap up here in a few minutes. One of the problems that you're going to face once you get into setting more appointments, start using the game plan frame, you get the advanced training, is you're going to have difficulty tying down the meeting. So what we do when we tie down the meeting, there's only two options when you're speaking to a prospect, in my opinion. I talk about this in the training portal. The options are you either take them to a Zoom meeting if you're speaking to somebody, or you take them to an in-person meeting. You want to tie down the meeting with mornings or afternoons. So we already walked through that. You want to find a time. You want to have a calendar invite. Like you want to have like a Calendly. Stop doing this manual crap. You want to have a Calendly that reminds the prospect a day before the meeting and then 20 minutes before the meeting that you're meeting. Automate that stuff. Get a Calendly, set it up, sync your calendar, make it super easy on yourself. And one of the things that I see a lot of agents don't have is a Calendly. It's super inexpensive and it'll save you a ton of time. The second thing you're going to do is you're going to personalize the invitation. So I'm going to give you a personalization for an in-person meeting. So say, for example, you're more of an in-person. I'm more of a Zoom. I like Zoom better because I can do, 15 to 30 minute consults on Zoom. Hey, like out of curiosity, like as you're closing out the call, like, are you a drip coffee or a latte kind of person? Oh, I'm more of a latte. Okay, awesome. When we meet at Starbucks on here in Ontario, I'm actually going to have a latte ready for you. Coffee's on me. That's how you personalize the invitation. You tie down the meeting. And then prior to the meeting, if you want to increase show up rates, especially if you have somebody else setting for you, you have to do this. We call it face to name. So either a bomb, a voice note, a video message, something to put the face to name, especially if it's a setter setting the appointment for you. You need to have that little bit of extra face to name touch that'll actually increase your show up rate, because there's this level of reciprocity. And essentially what you're going to do in the voice note is you're going to be like exactly what Ryan said. Hey, I've actually done some some research around like your specific circumstance. You're going to talk a little bit about that. I'm really excited to talk to you about like kind of our 3 pricing strategies. Or maybe, for example, if it's a seller, maybe you sent them what we call a deal of the week. Hey, I actually have, you could even do like a Loom video. Hey, I actually have about 5 to 6 people already that are interested in your property from an email I sent out. If you don't know what deal of the week is, shoot me a message. I can tell you what we do that for all of our clients. But I already have 5 to 6 buyers that are potentially interested in your property. You show proof over a promise prior to showing up to the meeting. That's great for a listing, but you want to put a face to name prior to the meeting. I'm going to go through with you guys really quickly how to overcome objections as we close out today. This is really, really, really high level. This takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of practice. You're not going to get this today. This is advanced sales training, but I want to give you a little bit of advanced sales training today, so you have an understanding of the foundations of how to overcome objections. And like, it's not even just necessarily how to overcome objections, it's how to prevent them. That's advanced sales training. So I'm going to give you a overcome objection framework, but there is objection prevention, which is, we talk about it inside of TRIZ. So we essentially in our conversation, how to like eliminate that objection from even happening, like interest rates. But I'm going to give you a framework today for how to think about objections. Number 1, we got to isolate the objection. Number 2, we have to understand the context. Number 3, we have to present a hypothetical. And number 4, we have to explain away their concern. But what do I mean by that practically? So say, for example, we have an interest rate objection. Most common one right now. Interest rates are at 7%. Oh my God. Well, like somewhere along the rate, somebody's like, well, like you got to date the rate and marry the home. Don't say that. That is stupid. That is a stupid thing to say. It doesn't make any sense either. They don't understand it, and it sounds weird. A better thing to ask would be this. Like, hey, Tom, like, I hear you. Like, that makes, sense. And that, it's an important question that a lot of our clients ask. Like, hey, I'm just curious, or just so I can see things through your eyes, like how exactly are you currently tracking interest rates and the current state of our local market? We got to get context for what they mean by interest rates, because maybe it's not even the interest rate. Like before we can tackle, is it more of a rate thing or is it more of a monthly payment thing? Before we can tackle that, we have to understand what kind of research have they done, because that research might break to the surface what they actually know about the market. Maybe they don't understand. Maybe they've never been explained what a 2-to-1 buy down is. Maybe it's a monthly payment thing. And maybe like we could solve it by simply explaining what a 2-to-1 buy down would be. We don't know until we understand the context of the objection. Before you can give an answer to the question, you need to isolate the objection and understand the context of their statement or question. Then you can steer the conversation based on how they answer the question. How do you do that is like, hey, like interest rates aside, when ideally would you like to be in the home in order to have the space for your kids to run around? This is why the clairvoyant probe is so important. Or like in a perfect world, what would interest rates need to be at in order for you to feel comfortable making a decision in order to get it to your perfect home? Well, ideally, we would like to see them around 5%. Okay, like now, when you say 5%, is it more the monthly payment of what 5% would give you? Or is it just like the interest rates, like you want to sort them, you want to get down to the root cause? Well, it's just a monthly payment. If we buy this, and then it would cost this. Well, hey, like, can I share with you like a different perspective? Then you explain 2-to-1 buy down, or then you isolate the objection and you answer it. The best way to overcome and diffuse any objection is really come back to the answers they gave you during stage 1. You tie it back to their aspirations because people buy with emotion, they justify it with logic. Before we can move into education mode, we need to identify and isolate the context for the objection. If we don't understand the context for the objection, we're gonna just spew facts over them. Well, you know, when the market does this and it bonds, and I've heard the strangest things people have said to try to overcome an objection, and the prospect's like a deer in headlights being like, I have no idea what you mean. You have to explain it in layman's terms. You might have all the information, but if you can't digest the information, like I said, the script's not for you, the script's for the client. You need to take that information you have internally and in your head. You need to be able to digest it in a way. I want to give you that framework today. How do we practice objections? We literally every single Tuesday inside the Sales Academy, this is what we practice. We have an objection prevention and objection handling day where we just role play objections. We write them down, we use the framework, we role play and practice every single day. And then introductions, I'm going to go high level overview on this, but every conversation you have with a prospect is an opportunity to ask for an introduction. Remove the word referral out of your vocabulary, instead use introduction. Hey Tom, I hope you like after you set the appointment and you do the buyer consult, you do the listing presentation. And if you don't have a buyer consult or a listing presentation, we have that all inside the Real Estate Sales Academy. We have literally written out word for word exactly what to say with a playbook and it's literally the frameworks, listing presentation framework that has helped Molly do more listings this year than she did all of last year by May of this year. Jan has more listings than he handle. Ryan's setting a ton of appointments. The list goes on and on and on. But like, if you want more information on that, you can let me know at the very end. You'll get the playbook, but you can reach out separately. But remove the word referral from your vocabulary and replace it with introduction. Hey Tom, I hope you found this information super useful after the buyer consult or after the listing presentation. If you don't mind me asking, do you happen to know anyone that might find this information helpful? Like, would you be open to making kind of an introduction via email or send their text? Or just like throwing us in a group chat so I can get this information as well. Really just going to help more people make good buying and just selling decisions like I helped you with today. Way better way to ask for an introduction. So like I said, here's the flow. You get a new lead, you set an in-person meeting, you meet that person in person or via Zoom, you get your buyer contract or listing agreement signed, and you get your deal. But in order to do that, you need the 7-figure playbook. So closing out here today, I hope you got a ton of value. Follow me on Instagram @CodMay. Take a screenshot of this, scan this, DM me the words 7-figure, and I'll get you access to the playbook for free. Because we do charge for this playbook because it's like literally like a super long script we give you plus like 44 training modules. So we usually charge for it. I'm gifting that to you for today for listening to this training. Just send me a message with the word 7-figure and I'll get you access to that. And if you want to learn a little bit more about Sheridan Street and what we do, scan this QR code, go to our website, sheridanstreet.io. Hope you got a ton of value today. I hope that this has helped you shift your perspective and allowed you to become an agent that takes market share, that dominates, that doesn't wait for the market to shift, but become the agent that is the game plan frame agent that takes the local market share because deals are happening in your marketplace. It's just a matter of whether you are getting those deals or not. And by listening to this training, I hope you get a ton of value. We'll see you all soon.